I want you to close your eyes for a second, right? And just imagine you're watching this grand military parade.
Oh, yeah. The classic show of force.
Exactly. You can literally feel the ground shaking. There are these endless, perfectly aligned rows of heavy battle tanks just rumbling across the avenue.
Right.
You look up, and there are these sleek, angular stealth fighters streaking overhead in perfect formation. Massive ballistic missile launchers are, rolling past you slowly. It is an absolute spectacle.
It really is. It's meant to be.
Yeah, it's entirely designed to project overwhelming power. And, let's be honest, it totally works. When you or I think about what makes a military strong, that's exactly what we picture, right? We think of the shiny, devastating hardware.
Of course we do. It's just human nature to focus on the threat you can actually see.
Right.
You look at an aircraft carrier or a nuclear submarine or some advanced air defense array. They're tangible, they're incredibly intimidating, and they just command your attention.
But the source material we're looking at for today's deep dive, it completely flips that whole idea on its head.
It really does.
Because we're exploring this fascinating reality today. Basically, every single piece of that flashy hardware you just pictured is essentially useless without an invisible weapon that, nobody ever puts in a parade.
No one wants to see it in a parade.
Exactly. We're talking about logistics. The core premise we're unpacking today is that logistics, not the missiles or the tanks, is what actually determines who wins and who loses wars.
Yeah, that is the foundational truth of it all.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because there's this analogy in the text that I couldn't get out of my head. It says a multi-million-dollar fighter jet without specialized spare parts or without, constant flow of aviation fuel is literally just a very heavy, incredibly expensive museum exhibit.
Right. It's just a set piece.
Yeah. A tank without gas is just a steel coffin sitting in the mud. It's such a simple concept, but it completely changes how you view military might,
Yeah. It completely strips away the Hollywood version of warfare. Because to really understand this, we need to define what military logistics actually is at its absolute simplest level.
Right.
It's the science of moving and sustaining forces. And we hear that and we think of delivery trucks, right?
Sort of FedEx, but for the Army.
Exactly. But the reality is so much more complex than that. In the military, they talk about the tooth-to-tail ratio.
The tooth-to-tail.
Yeah. The tooth is the combat soldier, actually pulling the trigger. But the tail is literally everything required to keep that one soldier alive and fighting.
Wow. Okay.
It's the transportation networks, it's fuel, it's food, water purification, routine maintenance, finding specialized spare parts.
Right.
Building infrastructure, setting up communications. It is massive.
It's basically the ultimate backstage crew.
Oh.
But, the stakes are literal survival.
Exactly. And that's the profound reality we're exploring here. Without that massive, unglamorous tail, the tooth just has no bite.
Right.
The weapons themselves, they've evolved over thousands of years, obviously. But the fundamental physics of needing to feed and fuel and fix a massive organization, that has not changed one bit.
Which honestly brings us to this massive historical irony.
Yeah.
If logistics is this bedrock, foundational science of war that has remained the exact same for millennia, what happens when supposedly brilliant, historically famous leaders just, completely ignore the math?
You get absolute unmitigated disaster. That's what happens.
Right.
When we look at the historical graveyards of grand armies, the collapse almost always starts with a logistical failure. A great example from the source material is Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh, right. Early 19th century.
Yeah, 1812. He understood military power better than almost anyone alive at the time. His armies seemed completely unstoppable across Europe. And then he decides he's going to launch an invasion into Russia with a force of over 500,000 soldiers.
500,000. And he went in expecting a totally quick, decisive victory, right? Like force a major battle, get some sort of political settlement, and march home in time for dinner.
That was the plan. But the Russian army, they completely refused to give him that decisive battle. They just retreated.
Wow.
And as they retreated, they utilized this brutal, scorched earth strategy. They destroyed their own local food supplies. They destroyed the infrastructure. And this is where the mechanisms of logistics become just brutal.
Because he's relying on horses, right?
Exactly. Napoleon relied entirely on horse-drawn supply lines. And there is a mathematical trap here that people forget about. horses have to eat.
Right, they need massive amounts of fodder every single day.
So if a draft horse is hauling a wagon full of grain, but that same horse needs to eat, say, 10 or 20 pounds of grain a day just to survive the grueling march, eventually, over vast distances, the horse eats its own payload.
Oh, wow. The logistics literally consume themselves.
Exactly. As the supply lines stretched thinner and thinner into the depths of Russia, the math just broke down. And then, of course, the Russian winter arrived.
Right, the famous winter.
Yeah. It wasn't Russian musket fire that broke the French army. It was starvation. Horses died by the tens of thousands. Disease spread everywhere.
And only a tiny, tiny fraction of that massive 500,000-man army ever returned.
Barely any of them.
The force literally collapsed under its own weight because the math of sustaining it just became impossible. And you would think, right, you'd think the world would learn from something that catastrophic.
You would hope so.
But then we fast forward just over a century later to 1941, and Nazi Germany makes the exact same fatal miscalculation with Operation Barbarossa.
Yeah, it remains the largest single military operation ever conducted in human history.
Wow.
And on the surface, at least initially, the German forces achieved these spectacular tactical successes. I mean, they were encircling entire Soviet armies, capturing millions of prisoners, advancing incredibly deep into Soviet territory.
But beneath all those flashy tactical victories, there was this fatal crisis quietly taking root. And the details here from the text are absolutely fascinating. Because it wasn't just that Russia was cold and far away.
No, it was structural.
Yeah, it was a structural failure. My absolute favorite detail is the train tracks.
The rail gauges. Yes, sure. This is a perfect example of logistics as strategy.
Right.
The Russian Empire had intentionally built their railway tracks with a wider gauge, so a wider distance between the two rails than the standard tracks used in Germany and the rest of Europe.
Which is brilliant.
It was a deliberate defensive mechanism.
Because it meant the German military couldn't just capture a Russian railway line and seamlessly, roll their own loaded supply trains straight toward Moscow.
Exactly. They had to stop at the border, unload millions of tons of cargo by hand, and physically transfer it to captured Russian trains.
If they could even find any.
Right, assuming they found them intact. Or their other option was to painstakingly tear up all the Russian tracks and lay down new, narrower tracks, often while under enemy fire.
That's insane.
It created massive cascading bottlenecks. And then you add to that the unexpected fuel consumption of their tanks churning through the Russian mud and just multiplying vehicle breakdowns everywhere.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because we are talking about some of the most studied, supposedly genius military campaigns in human history.
Yeah, they planned for years.
Right, they planned everything down to the minute. So how does lightning-fast tactical brilliance completely blind these commanders to something as basic as the width of a train track? Or, the mathematical reality of how much gas a tank needs?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the tactical success itself is the trap.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Rapid victories create this illusion of invincibility. When a commander is moving fast, encircling armies, and capturing territory, the sheer adrenaline of the victory masks the creeping, mundane crisis of the supply lines.
That makes a lot of sense.
They're looking at the map in headquarters, seeing their little flags move forward. But they aren't looking at the crumbling road networks or the completely empty fuel depots behind them. Tactical success simply cannot compensate for logistical failure.
Wow.
Eventually, the reality of physics catches up with you.
Okay, so we've seen how bad logistics destroys powerful armies. But how exactly does good logistics actively create a victory?
That is the flip side, yeah.
And the prime example the source gives is the Allied masterclass during World War II. When historians talk about why the Allies won, the conversation usually goes straight to industrial production, right? Like factories in America churning out tanks and bombers.
And that's the trap people fall into. They think production is logistics.
Right.
But building the tanks is only step one. Having 1 million tanks sitting in a factory in Michigan does absolutely nothing to win a battle in France.
Yeah, obviously.
The actual miracle was the global movement of those resources.
Think about the D-Day landings. A lot of people just picture the intense combat on the beaches, which, was brutal, but the invasion itself basically lasted a matter of days.
Right.
But the logistical preparation, it required years. The text compares it to planning an incredibly high-stakes, violent wedding.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah. It wasn't just dropping off soldiers. They had to flow millions of tons of supplies into Europe. It was like attempting to move an entire fully functional metropolis across a hostile ocean overnight.
The scale of the sustainment is just staggering.
Right.
The Allies had to develop one of history's most sophisticated logistical systems totally from scratch.
Yeah.
We're talking massive convoys crossing submarine-infested oceans.
Yeah.
They literally built artificial harbors, the Mulberry Harbors, and towed them across the English Channel just so they could unload cargo on a beach that didn't even have a port.
That is wild.
They laid fuel pipelines under the ocean surface that stretched all the way across to the continent.
So the combat event is short, but the sustainment is long. And you would assume, right, that as we move into the 21st century, this gets easier. I mean, we have precision-guided munitions now, satellites, artificial intelligence. It sounds like science fiction compared to World War II.
It really does. But there is a massive paradox here.
Oh.
Despite all of these huge technological leaps, modern technology has actually made sustainment exponentially harder. The logistical burden has magnified, not shrunk.
See, here's where it gets really interesting to me, because logically you would think that smarter, more precise weapons mean you need less stuff.
Right. You'd think
Think about a sniper versus a machine gunner. A sniper needs like one bullet to do the job, while the machine gunner needs 1,000. So why does highly advanced, precise technology mean more logistical demand?
It comes down to the extreme fragility and the complexity of the systems themselves.
Okay.
Let's look at fighter jets. An older fourth-generation fighter jet was rugged. You could largely patch it up on some dusty runway with a wrench, some oil, and standard mechanics.
Right, like an old muscle car.
Exactly. But a modern fifth-generation stealth fighter, it is essentially a flying supercomputer. The radar-absorbing stealth coating on the outside of the jet actually degrades under the sheer friction of supersonic flight.
Meaning you can't just like park it outside in the rain.
No, absolutely not. You need specialized climate-controlled hangars just to maintain the paint job.
Just for the paint job.
Yes. You need clean rooms, you need specialized software engineers deployed with the unit, and the precision weapons they fire. A modern hypersonic or precision-guided missile might take 18 months to build.
18 months for one missile.
Yeah, because it requires rare earth metals, incredibly specialized metallurgy, and these highly fragile global supply chains. You cannot just mass produce them overnight in a converted car factory like you could with artillery shells back in 1944.
Right.
So the smarter the military becomes, the heavier and more delicate its logistical tail grows.
And this extreme vulnerability, it isn't just theory, is it? We are watching this exact dynamic shape the modern battlefield.
Absolutely.
Look at the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. They aren't just shooting at tanks, they are aggressively hunting the supply lines.
Precision weapons make those logistical nodes highly vulnerable. Both sides know this. A single guided rocket can take out a crucial railway junction or a massive fuel storage tank or a bridge.
Right.
The objective is timeless. If you can interrupt the logistics, you immediately choke out the enemy's combat power. The actual struggle is happening far behind the front lines, just trying to protect these fragile supply chains.
Now, if flat plains and mud make logistics difficult in Eastern Europe, what happens when you introduce the most extreme geography on Earth?
It gets even harder.
Yeah. That brings us to the Himalayan frontier, looking at the strategic competition between India and China. You have extreme altitudes, freezing weather, incredibly difficult mountainous terrain, and historically, very limited infrastructure.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Himalayas demonstrate the core concept perfectly. Up there, logistics is strategy.
Right.
The physics of warfare just change completely. The air is thin. That means helicopters generate less lift and can carry significantly less cargo. Soldiers burn vastly more calories just trying to stay warm, which means they need way more food just to survive, let alone fight.
So you can't just fly everything in. You absolutely need roads.
Exactly. It becomes an infrastructure race. Who can carve the most border roads into the mountainside? Who can drill the strategic tunnels that actually remain open during winter avalanches? Who can upgrade forward airfields faster?
It really makes you realize that up in the mountains, a newly paved road or a completed tunnel is literally as much of a weapon as a new missile.
It is military power in its purest form.
Because without the road, the advanced missile never reaches the launcher. And without the tunnel, the troops freeze before they ever even see combat.
Mobility and sustainment dictate what is even militarily possible.
So if building roads and tunnels is the ultimate strategy on land, how does this invisible foundation operate in domains where you literally cannot build a road? like, the open ocean or cyberspace.
The maritime domain is a fascinating extension of this because naval warfare is, at its core, a massive logistical challenge.
Right.
A modern warship or an aircraft carrier is basically a floating city, but it is completely useless without an unbroken chain of overseas bases, ports, fuel depots, and repair facilities to extend its operational reach.
Right. A navy that can't sustain itself at sea eventually just stops being a navy. They have to come home.
Exactly. But the real evolution, the truly wild stuff, is happening in the digital space.
Oh, yeah.
The future of warfare will run on data just as much as it runs on jet fuel. We are seeing artificial intelligence optimizing global transportation routes. We're seeing predictive maintenance.
Predictive maintenance?
Yeah, where an AI system analyzes vibrations in a tank's engine, for example, and literally orders a replacement part before the engine actually breaks.
Oh, wow. That reminds me of upgrading to a smart home. Well, it's incredibly efficient, right? You can control your thermostat, your locks, your lights, all from your phone. It's seamless. But suddenly, you have this brand new single point of failure.
Ah, I see.
If someone hacks your Wi-Fi router, you suddenly can't even turn on your living room lights. Efficiency creates vulnerability.
That is the exact trade-off they discuss in the source. Future conflicts will absolutely see cyber attacks explicitly designed to disrupt these digital transportation systems.
Right.
If an adversary can hack the logistics software managing a major port, they don't even need to bomb the port.
Wow.
The automated cranes simply won't know which shipping container to move. The entire supply chain just freezes. Space-based satellite systems coordinating global movement, they become the primary targets.
So the logistics battlefield isn't disappearing, it's just migrating into the digital space.
Precisely. It's evolving.
We spend so much time obsessed with the shiny objects, don't we? The hypersonic missiles, the aircraft carriers, the stealth bombers at the parade. But mapping this all out shows how easily we are distracted by visible power.
We really are.
Endurance, resilience, the underlying mathematical ability to sustain a force day after day, month after month, that is what actually wins.
This raises an important question about how we actually measure true strength.
Yeah.
The fighter jet and the submarine, they are merely the tip of the spear. The shaft of that spear stretches all the way back through the digital supply chains, the global fuel networks, and the industrial base.
Right.
Weapons win battles, but logistics wins campaigns. And ultimately, logistics wins wars. The most important weapon on the battlefield truly is the one nobody sees.
That is incredibly well said. And I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over today, just building on everything we've talked about. If the true measure of a nation's military strength is actually the resilience of its logistics, then maybe we shouldn't be looking at their highly choreographed military parades to judge their power.
That's a great point.
Maybe. If you want to know who would actually endure and win the next global conflict, you shouldn't be looking at their stealth bombers at all. You should look at how efficiently their civilian supply chains can restock a neighborhood grocery store during a crisis.
Wow.
Or, how flawlessly their logistics networks can deliver a simple package to your front door. Because if a system can adapt to move a cardboard box, it definitely cannot move an army.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking for those invisible networks holding the world together.
Thank you for joining us on this Strategic Vanguard podcast. If you found value in this analysis, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We bring you fresh podcasts every Monday here on YouTube and Rumble, and you can also catch the audio versions on Spotify and Amazon Music. Just search for Strategic Vanguard Podcast. For more insights, articles, and discussions, subscribe to our blog at strategicvanguard.com. Your support helps us grow and bring you more in-depth analysis on defense, geopolitics, and strategy. Until next time, stay informed, stay strategic.